She mocked an elder in public. She laughed at every warning. By morning, even her own reflection turned away from her. Welcome to Tales by Omoh, where pride meets consequence, where choices return with receipts, and where stories are not told to entertain alone, but to correct, warn, and awaken.
Sit tight. This story may change how you treat people forever. In the village of Umoh, the earth remembered everyone. It remembered the barefoot farmers who rose before the sun. It remembered women who bent their backs at the stream. It remembered children who ran until dust swallowed their laughter. The ground never forgot.
But Sade walked as though the earth was beneath her concern. Her steps were loud, deliberate, confident, not because she was powerful, but because she believed she was. Her shoulders were always squared, her chin lifted as if looking down on life itself. Wherever Sade passed, conversations thinned, laughter died quietly, space opened around her like an unspoken warning. That morning, the village path was narrow, busy with early movement. Ahead of her walked an elderly woman, Mama Kola, slow and bent, her spine curved by years of carrying burdens no one remembered anymore. "Shift," Sade snapped. The old woman didn't hear fast enough. Impatience rose in Sade like heat. She shoved the woman hard. "Move out of my way," she barked. "Old age doesn't make you important." Mama Kola staggered. For a moment, she nearly fell. The village froze. Hands stopped mid-motion, baskets hung in the air. Children pressed into their mother's sides. Mama Kola straightened slowly. Her eyes met Sade's, not angry, not afraid, just heavy. The kind of look that carried years. She whispered something, soft, calm, unheard. Then she stepped aside. Sade laughed and walked on, pride swelling in her chest. Behind her, whispers followed like shadows. That girl has no fear. One day, pride will answer her. She thinks tomorrow is promised. Sade heard none of it, or maybe she heard everything and simply didn't care. Sade lived with her parents at the edge of Umoh. Their house was small, their roof old, their walls cracked by time. Poverty stayed with them quietly, but respect lived there too. Sade did not. Her mother often pleaded, "Lower your voice, respect elders." Sade waved her off. Her father spoke gently of humility. She laughed. "Small minds settle for small lives," she said. Villagers whispered about her face, uneven, sharp, unsoftened by kindness. Some said the spirits stopped halfway. Others said arrogance hardened what could have been gentle. Instead of humbling her, it fed her belief. I am different. I am above them. That night, Sade lay on her mat and whispered like a promise, I will never bow to anyone. The wind outside stirred strangely. Pain does not arrive loudly. It creeps. That night, Sade tossed on her mat. Heat crawled beneath her skin. Her face burned as though touched by unseen fire. Her bones ached, tightening, twisting. Then she screamed. Her mother rushed in and froze. Dark patches spread across Sade's face. Swelling rose unevenly. One side of her mouth drooped. One eye struggled to open. By morning, Umoh knew. People gathered at a distance, whispering carefully. This is not ordinary sickness. The spirits have spoken. She insulted Mama Cola. The herbalist arrived and shook his head slowly. The insult was light, he said, but the pride behind it was heavy. Beg her, Sade scoffed weakly. Never. The healer's voice hardened. Then this will continue. And it did. By the third day, Sade could barely stand. Pain lived in her bones. Fear moved into her chest and refused to leave. At night, alone, pride no longer spoke loudly. What if I die? The thought frightened her more than pain ever had. On the fifth night, while the village slept, Sade made a decision. She wrapped her head, steadied her shaking legs, and left before dawn. Every step away from Umuwara hurt. Her legs trembled, her breath came in broken pieces. The path felt longer than it ever had when pride carried her feet. By afternoon, she saw the hut. Mama Cola sat outside, grinding leaves calmly. Sade collapsed to her knees. "Forgive me," she whispered. "I was blind." The old woman studied her quietly. "Pain teaches what pride refuses," she said. "Go, change your heart." No herbs, no ritual, just truth. Sade returned home humbled, not healed, but changed. She spoke softly now. She listened. She waited. Healing followed slowly. Villagers noticed. She bowed today. She apologized. One afternoon, mockery returned. Laughter followed her steps. Pride knocked, briefly. The village woke the same way it always did, with dust rising, goats bleating, women calling children to fetch water. But Sade woke different. She rose slowly from her mat, her body still aching, her face still swollen, yet something inside her chest felt lighter. Not healed, lighter. The kind of lightness that comes when a heavy burden is finally put down. She greeted her mother first. "Good morning, Mama," she said softly. Her mother paused, hand frozen mid-motion. For a moment, she thought she imagined it. Sade had never greeted anyone gently before. Her father watched quietly from the corner. He said nothing, but his eyes followed her carefully, as though afraid the moment might shatter if touched. That morning, Sade swept the compound without being asked. The broom scraped against the earth slowly, deliberately. Each movement cost her effort. Pain still lived in her joints, but she did not complain. For the first time in her life, she worked without announcing it. Her mother whispered to her father, "Something has changed." He nodded. "Yes, but the village will test it." And the village did. At the well, women gathered as usual, their voices layered with gossip and laughter. When Sade approached with her bucket, the air shifted. Some stopped talking, some watched openly, some whispered behind cupped hands. "She has come again. Is she still sharp-mouthed? Let us see." Sade lowered her bucket carefully. She did not push forward, she did not glare. She waited her turn. The silence stretched. Amara, one of the younger women, stepped aside slowly, unsure. Sade shook her head. "No, I will wait." Murmurs rippled through the group. When the bucket finally filled, Sade lifted it with effort, her arms shaking. Water splashed onto the ground. Normally, she would have snapped at anyone who stared. This time, she simply steadied herself. As she turned to leave, she paused. "I have wronged many of you," she said quietly. "I am learning. No drama, No excuses, just truth. Some women looked away, uncomfortable. Others stared, unsure what to do with humility coming from a mouth that once spat fire. Healing did not rush her body that day, but something loosened. Pain teaches patience. Days passed slowly. Sade helped her mother pound grain. She fetched firewood. She carried water, even when her arms burned and her legs trembled. Every task felt heavier than it used to, not because it was harder, but because pride no longer carried her weight. Children watched her closely. They remembered the old Sade, loud, sharp, feared. One afternoon, a child stumbled and fell near her compound. The boy froze, expecting a shout. Sade knelt slowly despite the pain in her knees. "Are you hurt?" she asked. The boy shook his head, stunned. She helped him up gently. That single moment spread through Omoh faster than her insults ever had. She knelt. She asked kindly, "Is this the same Sade?" But change invites testing. One evening, as Sade passed the large Iroku tree, men sat beneath it laughing loudly. As she walked by, one muttered deliberately, "Even sickness couldn't soften that face completely." Laughter followed. The old fire stirred. For a brief moment, just a breath, Sade felt it rise. Her jaw tightened, her heart raced, words formed on her tongue, sharp and ready. This was the true test. Not sickness, not kneeling, not apology. This. She remembered the mat, the pain that stole her sleep, the walk to Mama Cola's hut, the fear of dying unheard. Sade exhaled and kept walking. Behind her, laughter faded awkwardly. That night, she knelt beside her mat and whispered, "I am still learning." Healing followed humility, not fast, not flashy, but faithful. The swelling on her face softened. The pain in her joints eased slightly, not gone, just quieter, like a warning that stayed close. The village watched, not with praise, not with applause, but with patience, because Omoh had learned something too. True change is proven, not declared. And Sade, once loud, once feared, once untouchable, was now being measured not by her face, not by her past, but by her daily choices. The hardest part of her journey had been. The days in Omoh moved slowly after Sade returned. The village noticed, but not all welcomed the change. Some whispered, unsure if humility could survive the shadow of past arrogance. Others watched with hope, wanting proof that even the proud could bend without breaking. Sade walked through the village square one morning, the sun high, dust clinging to her ankles as always. Her movements were careful now, her head no longer lifted in challenge, but in quiet acknowledgement of the life around her. Every step was deliberate, measured, thoughtful. Children paused in their play. Some stared, some pointed, but Sade did not scold them. She smiled briefly, a soft acknowledgement, and moved on. By the well, a group of maidens whispered as she approached. "She walks like she's learned humility," one murmured. "She is still Sade, but different," another said. The water rippled in the bucket as she lowered it slowly, eyes meeting theirs with quiet steadiness. One of the younger girls, Naya, stepped forward, courage trembling in her voice. "We thought you would mock us, Sade," she said softly. Sade knelt to meet her height, shaking slightly from the pain in her knees. "I once mocked, I once hurt, I once thought myself above everyone here," she admitted. "But pain has a way of teaching where words fail." The girls watched, wide-eyed. The oldest maiden, Amara, folded her arms, skeptical. "Do you truly change, or do you just speak softly now?" she asked. Sade smiled gently. "Change is not in the words I speak. It is in the choices I make every day. Listen to your hearts. Pride is a quiet enemy. Humility is a steady friend." The girls looked at one another, unsure what to say, but in silence they understood. The loudness of arrogance had faded, leaving only the careful strength of someone who had walked through fire. Meanwhile, the elders gathered quietly. Many had doubted that Sade's transformation could last. Some had even spoken aloud that punishment humbles, but humility heals, yet wondered if she would endure. On that same evening, Elder Ifeanyi, the oldest man in Umuora, called the village together. "We have watched a young girl, once filled with arrogance," he began, voice grave, "walk the path of pride, suffer its consequence, and return, not healed, but changed." The villagers listened, attentive. Elder Ifeanyi continued, "She teaches us that humility is not weakness. It is strength that grows quietly. It is not a display. It is a commitment to live rightly, even when no one is watching." Sade bowed her head, her hands folded before her. The villagers murmured. Some nodded, some whispered prayers. The lessons sank slowly into their hearts, like seeds carried by the wind. Not all were convinced. Some men whispered in corners, scoffing at the idea that a girl once feared could teach wisdom. Yet Sade carried on, undeterred. Every morning she helped her mother, swept the compound, and fetched water from the well. Every action was deliberate, measured. Every word gentle, careful, and meaningful. The village slowly noticed that she no longer arrived with the weight of arrogance, but with the steadiness of someone who understood consequence. One afternoon, a dispute broke out near the market. Two men argued violently over a piece of land. Voices rose, tempers flared, and the crowd grew tense. Sade approached quietly, her steps measured, pain still tugging at her body. She did not shout, she did not gesture angrily. She spoke, and the village leaned forward to hear. "Do you want this dispute to end with pride or with understanding?" Her words were not loud, but they carried weight. The men paused, unsure. Sade continued. "Listen to one another. Speak only what is true. Pride has no place here. Only respect can bring peace." Hours passed, slowly, carefully. By evening, the dispute ended. Neither man raised a hand, neither cursed. They nodded at one another. The village exhaled. And Sade? She walked home quietly, her body aching, her heart steady. She had not healed completely, but she had begun to heal the village as well. That night, Sade sat alone on her mat, staring at the ceiling. Her reflection in a small bowl of water showed a face still marked by swelling and dark patches, reminders of her pain. Yet she did not feel shame. She felt a quiet strength. She whispered to herself, soft but firm, "I am learning. I am not perfect, but I am becoming better than I was yesterday." And in that moment, Sade realized the truth. Healing the body is easier than healing trust. Humility is harder than pride, but those who endure it walk taller than they ever did before. The next morning, children called her to help them play. Villagers asked her advice. Women approached her quietly, seeking guidance. Sade responded with patience, with understanding, and with care. The transformation did not make noise. It did not demand attention. It simply existed, quietly, steadily, a living proof that even the proudest heart can bend without breaking, and even the deepest arrogance can yield to truth. Peace never lasts without testing. Every dawn after Sade's change came with both quiet blessings and new trials. Her steps were steadier, her heart calmer, but life, as it often does, came again to test the depth of her repentance. One hot afternoon, Sade sat weaving mats under the mango tree behind her compound. Sweat rolled down her temples, her hands aching, but she refused to stop. Work had become her way of speaking without words. The sun burned harshly, the kind of sun that turns dust into gold and patience into sweat. Suddenly, a shadow fell across her face. When she looked up, she froze. Adane, once her closest friend, now her deepest wound. Adane's eyes still held the old fire, that unspoken competition, that bitterness left from years of envy and pride. But what pained Sade most was not Adane's stare, it was the faint smile that followed, a smile filled with mockery. "So it's true," Adane said slowly, arms folded. "The mighty Sade now sits on the ground like a common woman." Sade swallowed hard, her hands trembling slightly. "Adane," she said quietly, "you look well." Adane scoffed. "Don't pretend humility. I know you. Everyone knows you. You're only soft because sickness broke your back. Let the pain go, and your pride will rise again." Sade said nothing. Her eyes drifted to the sky, then back to her mat. The wind carried Adane's perfume, sharp, expensive, proud. It reminded her of her old self, and she hated that reminder. "Do you need something, Adane?" she finally asked. Adane smirked. "No, I just came to see what repentance looks like on a woman who once thought herself queen of Umuwara." Her words cut deep. Sade's jaw tightened, but she took a breath. The old Sade would have risen and destroyed that peace with fire. The new Sade simply smiled. "Then look well," she said softly. "This is what peace looks like, not defeat." Adane's smirk faltered. For a moment, her eyes shifted, uncertain. She turned sharply and walked away, her voice trembling. "Keep pretending, Sade, but time will show who you truly are." That evening, Sade sat with her mother, who had watched the exchange from the kitchen doorway. "She came to provoke you," Mama said quietly. "I know," Sade replied, "and it worked, but not the way she hoped." Her mother raised an eyebrow. "How so?" Sade smiled faintly. "She reminded me that repentance is not proven when no one mocks you. It's proven when someone does, and you still choose peace." Her mother watched her for a long time, then nodded. "You have grown." Days passed. Sade's health improved little by little. The swelling faded, replaced by light scars, reminders, not punishments. One evening, during the New Moon Festival, a group of maidens performed a dance in the village square. The whole of Umuwara gathered. Laughter, drums, and bright colors filled the air. Sade stood at the edge of the crowd, clapping softly, smiling as she watched. Then came a sudden commotion. A child had fallen near the fire pit. The crowd gasped. Flames caught the edge of his wrapper, and panic broke loose. Without thinking, Sade rushed forward. She threw herself onto the child, smothering the fire with her own wrapper. Her skin burned, her heart pounded, but she did not stop until the flames were out. Silence fell. Elder Ifeanyi rose from his seat. "Who saved him?" he called. The crowd parted, revealing Sade, her hands blackened with soot, her eyes wide, tears streaking down her cheeks. The boy clung to her neck, sobbing. "It was Sade!" someone shouted. The crowd erupted, not in gossip this time, in awe. Women dropped their calabashes, men stood. Even Adane, who had been watching from afar, covered her mouth, stunned. Elder Ifani raised his staff high. "Umuora, hear me. The one who once burned others with her words now bears burns from saving another's life. This is repentance, not spoken, but lived." Cheers filled the night air. Drums rolled like thunder. The villagers danced, not for a festival, but for a heart reborn. Later that night, after the celebration, Adane approached again, this time without her smirk. She looked down, ashamed. "You saved that boy, even when everyone doubted you," she said quietly. Sade turned slowly. "I did what was right, not what would be remembered." Adane's eyes glistened. "I have wronged you many times." Sade smiled gently. "Then we are the same. We both have things to undo." And in that single sentence, years of rivalry began to melt. From that day, the story of Sade spread beyond Umuora. People from nearby villages came to hear of the proud woman who had been broken and remade. Mothers whispered her name to their daughters. Elders used her story as warning and as hope. And for the first time, Sade realized that her pain was not punishment, it was purpose, because her journey, though born from shame, now carried the strength to heal others. One afternoon in Umuora, the sun burned low and heavy, pressing down on the village like a reminder that heat reveals what shade tries to hide. Sade sat alone near her compound, repairing a torn basket. Her fingers moved slowly. Pain still lived in her joints, softer now, but never gone. Voices drifted toward her, sharp voices, angry voices. She looked up. Two women stood near the path, arguing loudly. One of them, Bisi, was a trader from the western end of the village. The other, younger and trembling, was Zainab, a widow who sold vegetables in the market. "You cheated me," Bisi shouted. "I did not," Zainab replied weakly. The crowd began to gather. Sade felt her chest tighten, not because of the argument, but because she recognized this moment. She had stood in this same place once, and she had not stood quietly. The memory hit her without warning. It was 2 seasons ago, before sickness, before kneeling, before humility. Zainab had stood at the market that day, her vegetables neatly arranged. Sade had walked past, eyes sharp with irritation. "These leaves are rotten," Sade had said loudly. "They are fresh," Zainab replied softly. Sade laughed, loud, cutting. "Don't argue with me. If you cannot sell properly, go back to your husband's grave." The market had gone silent. Zainab's hands had trembled. Tears filled her eyes. Someone had whispered, "Sade, that is too much." Sade had turned sharply. "Who asked you?" She had swept Zainab's vegetables onto the ground with one angry kick and walked away as the widow collapsed, crying. No apology, no regret. Only pride. Sade's breath caught as the memory faded. The argument before her continued. "You always insult people," Bisi shouted at Zainab. Something broke inside Sade. She stood, slowly, carefully. The crowd noticed. Whispers followed her steps. "Is that Sade? The same one? Let us see." She approached the women and raised a calm hand. "Stop," she said quietly. Bisi turned sharply. "Who are you to stop anything? You used to be worse than all of us." The words struck, and they were true. Sadeh nodded. Yes, I was. The crowd shifted uncomfortably. She turned to Zainab, her voice trembling. I wronged you, she said, deeply, publicly, cruelly. Zainab stared at her, shocked. Sadeh lowered herself, slowly, painfully, and knelt. I cannot undo what I did, she continued, but I will not pretend it did not happen. The crowd gasped. This was not the Sadeh they remembered. But the past was not finished. As Sadeh stood, another voice cut through the air. Since we are speaking the truth, a man said, stepping forward, should we also talk about old Baba Kunle? Sadeh froze. The memory rushed back again. Baba Kunle, the old blind man who used to sit near the shrine. He had once accidentally tapped Sadeh's foot with his walking stick. She had slapped the stick from his hand. Watch where you're swinging that thing, she had snapped. I am not one of your children. The old man had fallen. People had helped him up while Sadeh walked away. You never apologized, the man continued. You laughed. Sadeh swallowed hard. Yes, she said, I did. Another voice rose. And the day you poured dirty water on children who blocked your path? Yes. And when you insulted Mama Cola? Yes. Each word felt like lifting a stone. The village was silent now. Not angry, not mocking, watching. Sade straightened, pain screaming in her bones, but her voice was steady. I was cruel, she said, not because I was strong, but because I was empty. She looked around slowly. I cannot erase my past, but I can face it. No one spoke. Then something unexpected happened. Zainab stepped forward. You hurt me, she said quietly, but today you knelt. She turned to the crowd. Let us watch her. Change is not proven in one day. Sade bowed her head. That night, she cried, not from pain, from shame long overdue. Later, as she lay on her mat, Sade understood something she had never known before. People do not doubt your change because they hate you. They doubt because your past taught them to fear you, and fear takes time to unlearn. She whispered into the darkness, I accept the weight of who I was. Outside, the village slept. Inside, Sade carried the shadows she had left behind, not to be crushed by them, but to remember the cost of pride. Change does not end at confession. Confession only opens the door. What follows is heavier. Repair. After the confrontation in the market, Sade could no longer hide from her past. The village had spoken her wrongs aloud, naming them one by one, not to destroy her, but to remember what she once made others endure. That night, sleep avoided her. She lay on her mat listening to the sounds of Umwara settling into darkness. Crickets singing, distant laughter fading, the wind brushing against the walls. Each sound carried a memory. Each memory carried a face. Zainab, Baba Kunle, the children she had humiliated, Mama Cola. Her chest tightened. Acknowledging wrong is not enough, she realized. I must return what I took. At first light, Sadeh rose before the village stirred. She tied her wrapper carefully and stepped outside. The morning air was cool, but her palms were already sweating. Her first stop was the market. Zainab was arranging vegetables quietly, her movements cautious, as though expecting trouble even now. When she saw Sadeh approaching, her shoulders stiffened. I am not here to argue, Sadeh said quickly, stopping at a distance. I came to work. Zainab frowned. Work? Sadeh nodded. for free, for as long as you will allow." The widow studied her face, still marked, still imperfect, but different. Something in Sade's eyes held no demand, no pride. "Then carry," Zainab said at last, handing her a basket. Sade carried. Her arms burned, her back screamed, sweat soaked her clothes, yet she did not stop. She fetched water, she cleaned leaves, she stood in the sun until her vision blurred. People passed and stared. Some whispered, some scoffed, some said nothing. By noon, Zainab spoke again. "You may rest." Sade shook her head. "Not yet." When the work was done, Zainab looked at her for a long moment. "You embarrassed me publicly," she said quietly. "You made me feel smaller than the dust." Sade bowed deeply. "I know," she said. "I carry that shame." Zainab exhaled slowly. "Then go. We will see what tomorrow brings." Sade's second stop was the shrine path. Baba Kunle sat where he always had, tapping his walking stick against the ground, humming softly. The sound pierced Sade's heart. She knelt before him. The old man tilted his head. "Who is there?" "It is Sade," she said. Silence. Then his grip tightened on the stick. "You," he said quietly. Sade lowered her head until it touched the earth. "I pushed you. I humiliated you. I broke your dignity." The old man said nothing for a long time. Finally, he spoke. "I fell that day," he said, "and no one helped me until you were gone." Sade's breath hitched. "I cannot undo that," she whispered. "But I can be your hands now, if you allow it." Baba Kunle sighed, deep, tired. "Help me home," he said. That was all, and it was everything. Days passed. Sade made restitution quietly. She repaired fences she had once kicked down in anger. She fetched water for elders she had ignored. She spoke last, listened first, and accepted correction without defense. The village watched closely. Not everyone believed. "She is acting," some said. "Pain forced her," others muttered. Sade heard it all and kept going. One afternoon, she finally saw Mama Kula again. The old woman was seated beneath a tree, sorting herbs. Sade's heart thundered. This was the wound that bled the deepest. She approached slowly. Mama Kola looked up and smiled faintly. Sade knelt immediately. "I insulted you," she said. "I pushed you. I laughed." Mama Kola nodded. "Yes." "I was proud," Sade continued, "and pride made me cruel." Mama Kola studied her face for a long time. "You did not come to beg healing," the old woman said. "No," Sade replied. "I came to return respect." Mama Kola smiled gently. "Then you are truly changing." She placed a wrinkled hand on Sade's head. Not a blessing, not a ritual, just acknowledgement. Something loosened inside Sade's chest. That evening, as Sade walked home, a child ran past and nearly collided with her. He froze in fear. Sade knelt. "Careful," she said softly. "The path belongs to us all." The child nodded and ran on. From a distance, villagers watched. For the first time, no one laughed. No one mocked. They were beginning to understand. This was not performance. This was payment. And payment, when sincere, takes time. Sade returned home exhausted, her body aching, her spirit heavy, but clean. She lay down and whispered, "Let my life repay my mouth." Outside, Umora breathed quietly. The work of becoming had only just begun. Change is easy when watched. It is hardest when tested. For weeks, Sade continued her quiet work. She rose before dawn, slept after dusk, and spoke only when necessary. Her body grew thinner, her movements slower, but something within her grew firm, like a root pushing deeper into the earth. The village of Umora began to soften, not openly, not loudly, but subtly. Some elders nodded when she passed. Children no longer ran away in fear. A few traders allowed her to help without suspicion. Still, not everyone was convinced, and life, as it always does, prepared a test. It happened on a market day. The sun was high, the crowd thick, the air heavy with noise and bargaining. Sade was assisting Zainab again, carefully arranging vegetables, when a familiar laugh cut through the chatter. Sharp, mocking. Sade stiffened. She knew that laugh. Raliat. Raliat was once Sade's closest ally, loud, arrogant, cruel in quieter ways. Together, they had laughed at people, mocked weakness, and enjoyed being feared. Raliat stepped into view, dressed finely, eyes roaming with amusement. "Well," she said loudly, "look who humility has found." The market grew silent. Zainab shifted uncomfortably. Raliat circled Sade slowly, inspecting her like an object. "So this is what you've become, carrying baskets like a servant?" Old Sade would have struck her. New Sade lowered her eyes. "I am working," Sade said calmly. Raliat laughed. "Working or pretending? Tell them the truth. You changed because fear broke you." A murmur spread through the crowd. Sade's fingers trembled. The old anger stirred, hot, familiar, tempting. Raliat leaned closer. "You were powerful once. Now look at you." The market waited. This was the moment. Sade inhaled deeply. "Yes," she said, "I was powerful." Raliat smiled. "And now?" "And now," Sade continued, lifting her eyes, "I am responsible." The word landed heavily. Raliat scoffed. "Responsibility doesn't erase disgrace." "No," Sade replied softly, "but pride created it." The crowd stirred. Raliat's smile faded slightly. "You think kneeling will rewrite your name?" Sade shook her head. "I kneel so I don't forget who I hurt." Silence fell. Raliat stepped back, unsettled. "You've become boring," she muttered. She turned and walked away. The market exhaled. Zainab whispered, "That would have ended badly before." Sade nodded, "Yes." But the test was not finished. That evening, as Sade walked home, rain began to fall, sudden and heavy. The paths turned slick. She hurried, her joints aching. Near the old well, she heard a cry, "Help!" She turned. A young boy had slipped and fallen, his leg twisted awkwardly. Water pooled around him. People passed, hesitating, watching. Sade rushed forward without thinking. She knelt in the mud, lifted the boy gently, ignoring the pain shooting through her body. "Where is your mother?" she asked. The boy pointed weakly. A woman pushed through the crowd, panic on her face. Raliat. She froze when she saw Sade holding her son. Their eyes met. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Sade said quietly, "He needs help." Raliat hesitated, pride wrestling fear. Sade did not rush her. At last, Raliat nodded stiffly. Together, they carried the boy to shelter. The rain continued to fall. Later that night, Raliat stood outside Sade's compound. "I didn't come to thank you," she said bluntly. Sade nodded. "You don't have to." "But," Raliat paused, "you could have walked away." "Yes," Sade replied, "I could have." "Why didn't you?" Sade thought for a moment. "Because walking away is how I became who I was." Raliat looked at her, really looked at her. "People don't forget easily," she said. "I know," Sade replied. Raliat turned to leave, then stopped. "My son asked your name," she said quietly. "I told him." She left without another word.
That night, Sade sat alone, rain tapping gently on the roof. She realized something important. Real change does not announce itself. It reveals itself when old opportunities return and are refused. The village might still doubt her, the scars might still remain, but today she had passed a test unseen by most, and unseen tests are the ones that matter most. She closed her eyes and whispered, "Let my silence speak louder than my past." The rain softened, and somewhere in Umuora, trust took its first fragile breath. Pain does not leave simply because forgiveness begins. Sade discovered this one morning when she tried to rise and her legs refused her. Her joints burned like quiet fire. The marks on her skin had faded, but weakness clung stubbornly to her bones. The priest visited again. "Your body remembers what your mouth once spoke," he said gently. "Healing follows truth, but slowly." Word spread quickly. "She is still sick. Maybe the curse has not fully lifted, or maybe it has changed form." Fear returned, not toward Sade, but toward what her story represented. Still, Sade did not retreat. She leaned on a stick and continued helping. Every step hurt. Every stumble reminded her that transformation always extracts a price. Trouble came suddenly. A fire broke out near the western farms, racing through dry grass towards several homes. Panic erupted. Buckets were scarce. Children screamed. Sade was the first to run forward. She organized people instinctively, not with arrogance, but urgency. "You, water! You, move the children! You, break the fence!" People obeyed without thinking. Hours later, the fire died. A home was saved. A life was spared. Silence followed. Someone whispered, "She led us." For the first time, no one corrected it. That evening, the elders summoned Sade. She stood before them, weak but upright. "You have changed," one elder said. "Yes," another added, "but change does not erase memory." Sade bowed. "I am not asking to be trusted," she said, "only to be allowed to serve." The eldest elder nodded slowly. "Then serve," he said, "without title, without praise." Sade agreed. True forgiveness, she learned, is not granted by applause, but by endurance. The woman she had pushed, Mama Kola, fell ill. Sade was the one who stayed. She cooked, she cleaned, she slept on the floor. One night, Mama Kola gripped her hand. "You feared weakness once," the old woman said. "Now you carry it." Mama Kola died before dawn. At her burial, Sade wept openly, not from guilt alone, but from love born too late. The village saw it. Something shifted permanently. Months passed. Children greeted Sade first now. Elders called her when disputes arose. Women sought her counsel quietly. Her name was still remembered, but no longer with bitterness. Pain still lived in her body, but peace had found her spirit.
She accepted both. The elders offered her a role, small authority. The village watched closely. Would power wake the old Sade? She surprised them. She refused harsh judgment. She listened more than she spoke. She corrected gently. Power came and left her unchanged. That was the proof. One day, a stranger insulted her publicly. The crowd waited. Sade smiled calmly and walked away. Later, someone asked, "Why didn't you respond?" She replied, "I already know who I was. I don't need to defend who I am becoming."
Years later, mothers warned their children. Pride destroys. Words wound, but humility restores. They told Sade's story not to shame her, but to teach. She became an example, not a rumor. Sade died quietly many years later. At her burial, the village stood united. The priest spoke softly. She fell greatly. She rose slowly, and she paid fully. The soil covered her, gentle, forgiving. Her legacy remained. Pride may lift you high, but only humility can carry you back when you fall. Change is not proven by tears, words, or fear, but by consistent obedience to what is right, even when no one is watching. Your past may explain you, but it does not have to imprison. This story reminds us that wickedness is loud, consequences are patient, redemption is expensive, and humility is the only true cure. If this story touched you, share it. Someone needs this lesson today. This is Tales by Omoh, where stories heal, warn, and awaken the soul.